All right. Welcome to a much overdue Wooden Boatopia Council gathering. It is so lovely to see everyone. I've missed you all. And we have two new faces for the public today, Liza and Belinda. So do you guys want to kickstart with a little brief introduction of yourselves, please? Yep. Belinda, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Angie. I'm very excited to be here. I've loved your project from the get-go, and it's amazing to be supporting you and what you're doing. So I'm basically the founder of Women in Boat Building, and we're a global community that support women that work hands-on in boatyards and boat building and all marine trades. And Obi, obviously, he was here before, is another of our directors. So it's really, really exciting to be here.
Excellent. Lisa?
Hi, I'm really bad with introductions. So I'm Lisa, and I've been in education and learning for about 10 years, and now moved into the boat building side of things and sailing, and trying to combine the learning side of it with the ocean and climate change and bring the learning into the social action. And I'm a very proud boat advisor for Angie and Floating Stories Lab. That was really a huge privilege. So thank you so much for having me there. And currently I'm helping Women in the Wind Foundation as well with the data side of things. And in general, very interested about how to bring the industry with nonprofits and grassroots initiatives together and find some solutions. And I'm really inspired by the work of the women in boat building. So it's just really, really lovely to see you finally in person here. I mean, not in person, I mean, for the internet, but still really nice. So thank you so much for having me here. And we're building the TK26 catamaran in Kent right now. So it's all new, and I'm not a proficient boat builder, so I'm here to learn and maybe to share some of the insights from the industry if I can, because I just came back from Matt's trade and there were like lots of bits and pieces and networking that I'd be happy to share. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting. Another woman in boat building here. I'm going to just start with some really quick updates because I want to give the floor to Obi and Otto today to really share what you guys are working on. And then maybe at the end, we can just have a general discussion about things. Like you mentioned, Met's trade was just on and you were there, and Obi, you were there, or Otto, both of you?
I was there.
Otto was there, and also Belinda and I just recently caught up in the UK with Dr. Corinna, and she's working on an exciting symposium on the GRP bad boat stuff for next year. And Hanneke's got exciting news too. So I'm going to try and keep it in a nice flow today. On our side, things are going really well. Remy is moving again, which is the best news because it means I don't have to do all the heavy work anymore. We just put out a new video from cutting the Mavingi planks. So on the materials side of things, we've really kind of completed the first stage of testing. We were really happy with the 100% change climate bioepoxy, which you would have seen in our last video. We did some stress testing on that. It has a problem with the vertical tack in that it's just not tacky enough and needs a bit of a formula tweak. I'm going down to Australia to visit my family in a couple of weeks, and it just so happens that that epoxy is made in Adelaide, where I'm from, which was completely by coincidence. So I'm hoping to catch up with Sean, the CEO, and we're going to talk in more depth about the very simple tweaks required to the formula. We do have a supply chain issue at the moment. They have a distributor in Spain, but there's only like 25 kilos of the CCBE1, which we would be able to use on all the horizontal work. So we could use it right now because we're about to coat the ply to make the backbone and bulkheads. But they only have 20 kilos and we need 60 kilos. So we are kind of in a mad dash right now to use a different local product. We're probably going to go with Resultex Bioepoxy. They're a local French epoxy company, and Pascal has experience working with Resultex, so he can validate that already. We don't need to do any testing. He's already used it and loves it. They have a bit more longer term data on the bioepoxy as well. in the marine environment. So I guess the goal right now would be to be using this on the immediate needs and then working to get this tweak, change climate 100% bioepoxy, the algae derived one, to us by February, when we're going to have our second tranche of grant money and be ready to, you know, purchase more bulk of the epoxy. There is another local French bioepoxy made by Sycomen. It does have a molecule that Pascal was allergic to and nearly died. Proof that even a bioepoxy, I mean, as Corinna always reminds me, anything in nature is also poison. It just depends on the dose. And I guess that's a good reminder to anyone using any kind of bio materials, epoxies, resins, paints, whatever. You still need to be fully protected. Not to say that Pascal wasn't. He just, after years, decades of working with composites, he happened to have a reaction to this particular one. And yeah, it nearly killed him. So we could go with the Sycomen one. It is a good epoxy, but we want Pascal to be able to come to the boatyard and help us, and he would not be able to do that if we chose that one. So looks like we'll be working with Resoltech and Change Climate. We had a little bit of a nightmare with the plywood. We had a great first batch and learned a very hard lesson because we didn't unpack all the planks. So we got a pallet of 50. We already had a sample. It was excellent. And the top planks looked fantastic. This is the maritime pine, the tebopan. When the second batch arrived, I noticed as it was coming in on the forklift that it just did not look anything like the first batch. I could see warping. Sorry, that's my son. I knew he would text me a million times to pick him up from school. I could see that it had damage. So then whilst the delivery guy was there, we actually started pulling off the panels and we were like, this is absolutely unacceptable. So the issue there was they have a variation in what's acceptable of the quality of this particular one. And we didn't realize, or maybe it was a communication error. We thought we were getting the Tebopan Elite. This was the one grade down and the sample was basically as good as the Elite. So why not go for that? What we decided to do was send it all back. We didn't want to risk that the first batch was also full of flaws, and the sort of like this tail end of the variation range that's acceptable was just not acceptable for us for what we needed. You know, this is plywood that's used in building and construction, obviously coated with epoxy. It suits our needs, but yeah, there's a translation difference for boat building. So we are lucky that Partidis, the distributors, the only distributors of Tebopan, really love the project and have been very supportive, and they took it all back and they've put in an actual new production order of the Tebopan Elite for 2 pallets of that. The issue is it's about 6 to 8 weeks production time plus Christmas. So we're looking at like January, February, and we're ready to go now. So we had to make a little bit of a hard decision to order 20 panels of Okume to get started. So that will be our backbone and bulkheads that we're really ready to go with right now. We've built our epoxy tent. We've cut all the movingi for the stringers. We have another volunteer arriving tomorrow from Canada, and we really need to keep moving before the end of the year. So that's our kind of updates, which all come out in the videos, but you guys get the, you know, the insider info in real time. It was very stressful, to be honest, having to send that ply back. And as you know, we're trying to have these parameters of making the most low impact boat we can. But I think it was a really good lesson in being flexible and considering other options. And with the epoxy and the plywood, it's also showing that we are really sticking true to the Floating Stories lab. This is going to be a lab boat. It's going to have a combination of materials on it, and we're going to be able to get some great data over time. So yeah, on that note, we did have a great call with Lizzie from Marine Shift. We're looking at how we can maybe partner into as a grassroots boat building gang, non-profit, meaning we have a lot less bias than for profits. We're looking at how we can you know, partnering with Marine Shift and maybe other LCA kind of orgs to give our feedback and data as we go on the materials we're using. So that's an update from us on the boat build side of things. And today I really want to give the floor to Obi and Otto from Blue Tree Boat Builders. Last time you guys were stuck in a cafe, I think, and I'm not sure that everyone could hear you properly. So maybe it would be a good idea to give a re-intro of Blue Tree and then a great update of what you guys have been up to.
Cool. Yeah. Do you want to go for it, Obi?
Yeah. Okay. I'll start off and then
you start, and I'll chip in.
Yeah. So yeah, we were in I think a Cornish cafe trying to do it, and and it's like you're trying to block out background noise. But yeah, it's lovely to be here. So we're Blue Tree Boat Builders. We founded in 2023. We've gone to the Lyme Regis boat building school, and so come from different backgrounds. So Otto's from a kind of branding background, and then I'm from a design background, and then had fallen in love with building boats on the course, and then decided to set up a boat building business that was trying to, I want to say, steer the tanker kind of very, very slowly in a direction that's more sustainable, like within the marine world. So we've kind of set up a kind of like our core principles, which is like project harmony. And so we have, we look at product, which, includes life cycle analyses, but also look at place, and then people and planet. And obviously that's, involves everything. And then, the practice of what we do as well. So that's our kind of core kind of running through what we do. And then we've got a few ranges. So Stria, which is our electric day boats, and then we have Revere, which is kind of not older, but restoring classic boats and end of life boats, and then Artist, which is a kind of more high end build. We haven't built, it's still on the drawing board, the Artist, but it is this thing of like trying to, from the design stage, just bring in sustainability. So trying to not use African hardwoods if we can. So it's all kind of lots of kind of different pots going on. And then we've been working with various kind of research universities to try and understand, where we can go with this. So do you want to continue, Otto?
Well, I think you said quite a lot there, Obi. To be really honest, I don't know where to chip in. Starting in 2023, so it's 2.5 years. We've got our own boatyard down in Lyme Regis, which is great. And we've got the prototype of the Stria, the 5 meter day launch, which is on the River Thames at the moment, which is basically where I am at the moment, I live in Windsor. And that's been great. So I suppose now really where we're at is from a sales point of view is actually trying to get revenue through the door. We're a business that needs to try and get revenue through in order to kind of reinvest that money back into the business to ensure that what we're trying to achieve, which is the big goal of, low impact boats and moving away from plastic to more sustainable materials and the use of that, and not only sustainable boats, but being sustainable in our process and our practice and what we do as well at the same time. So when you're not building boats, which we're not building boats at the moment because we've got our prototype, although we have got a Chris Craft 1938 Revere, which we've got in the yard as well at the same time.
We are restoring a GRP boat at the moment. So the Alban Vega. Yeah. So just get it back out there.
Yes, we are. And it's that process now where we've got to try and drive revenue to bring back to understand what our processes are looking like. So we are working with Innovate UK, which has been amazing. They are super. They're absolutely fantastic. And we've actually got another meeting with their kind of manufacturing / production person called Paul, who's going to be looking at how we can improve our processes as well at the same time from a sustainable point of view. So there's lots going on, and the collaboration with Arts University Bournemouth with their innovation hub, which has been great. Obviously met Lisa at Metz last week, which was great, and Marine Shift 360 and the accelerator program. So you're spinning lots of plates from a business point of view, but it does draw, you know, we're talking to investors as well. So there's loads going on, but you've got to create sales and you've got to create revenue. And that's where we're at really at the moment, 2 years in, 2.5 years in. We're getting a little bit of traction, target audience being businesses as well. I mean, we'll take private commissions, but the reason why we've gone for businesses as well is because we want to make sure that our boats are used more often than kind of individual. So if we're partnering with hotels, for example, or property development companies, then we've got the opportunity not only to create revenue for ourselves and therefore employ people, but also we get our boats out there that are making it more accessible for people to be on the water, which is, again, is super important. So rather than a boat just being used for, I don't know, 80 hours a year, it can be used for 800 hours. So that's really kind of key for us. Got a little bit of traction. Can't tell you too much about one hotel, but, you know, fingers crossed. We're talking to them at the moment, and yeah, let's see where it goes. Christmas is coming, so that's always quite nice. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at, really, I think. Is that fair to say, Obi?
Yeah, so just to kind of go into more detail with some of the bits. So we've done a life cycle analysis for the Stria, so the 5-meter launch. And with that, you know, so looking at, you know, the assessments, you're trying to put in the information before you start building. So what we'd found with Marine Shift and, you know, talking with Ollie, I haven't met Lizzie, but I've met Ollie, and it was great to get his kind of, you know, that side of it from, or his take on it. So it was things like fractional ownership, things like that we were like, okay, yes, this is something we really want to take forward in the kind of bigger picture. But looking at the numbers, what we found, so they use EcoInvent as their kind of base, and a few of the woods in Marine Shift aren't actually, you know, the woods that we used aren't actually in there. So we had to replace, you know, say there wasn't oak, so we had to try and, you know, find something in the kind of tool that was similar, but you know you're what is it, kind of making assumptions that aren't quite right and aren't as good as, you know, what you're choosing, and also things like the plywood, you know, so we've used Vendia plywood, and yeah, so it was just things like that we fed back to Ollie. But it's, you know, from working with a wider kind of group of wooden boat builders that I think we'll get a bit more, the word isn't support, but, you know, a bit more help with trying to push for better kind of outcomes for us. Because what we're also finding is the information about a boat that's already existed for 80 plus years, how do you kind of feed that to a calculator as well? And obviously there's cycles of LCA, you know, for quite a few boat, there's that kind of that come in that you want to be able to go, right, okay, yes, this is what the boat was new, and you might not have the bill of materials to work with, and also, you know, employing a naval architect to do the bills of materials is quite difficult, or, you know, costly. And then when you're trying to feed in the new stuff that you need to put in, it's how you do that. So there's things that are quite specific to wooden boat building, but that actually will extend, you know, the life of boats for, I want to say, hundreds of years, you know. We'd also looked at trying to compare our boats with GRP, you know, like for like. And that also involves possibly someone, you know, giving you a bill of materials for a GRP equivalent, which is a costly, you know, exercise as well. So it was just things like that we wanted, you know, when you have data on your boat, and you're not quite sure how to relate it to what else is going on. So it would be great to have more and more people kind of putting information in from a kind of wooden boat, but also wide, you know, so you can compare maybe 5 meters of all different types, and whether that information can be shared, you know, to the wider kind of public, is something that I really kind of like to get support with Marine Shift to do, if if the impact accelerator works. Yeah.
I think. Oh, sorry,
Lisa. Yeah.
Just wanted to add very quickly that we talked about it with Otto on MedStrade, and we met Ollie and Lizzie, and I met Craig as well. So he's a technical director of the Marine Futures. So they told me that they're very happy to actually add the data points on wood. And the only thing that we need to do it is basically they asked to list all the data points we want, specific wood types, and basically talk about like what suppliers we're using, and they can put it all in the database, because it's very easy. Like they actually having this spreadsheet that they can put into the system straight away. It's just they don't have the data because they're working mostly with the composite suppliers. So if we're going to collectively have this information somewhere for them, they'd be really happy to fill it in, because the only problem for them is that there are lots of different data points, and if they're going to put everything in the system, it's just going to be ginormous and a little bit unruly, because we know that it's already quite hard to actually go through all of this. And we've been talking about these automatization processes of how we can make it easier for people to use. But in terms of the wooden part of things, I completely agree, because I've started the LCA for our project in Kent for this small boat, like Wharram Tiki 26, and I already can see that I cannot choose the wood, and timber is the most important part of it.
Yeah.
And then so it's we talked about it, and they're quite open to add the data. In case.
And then imagine with our boat where you have like sourced like legacy hardwood that's been sitting in a warehouse for 25 years coming from a 200-year-old tree. Like it's an African hardwood, but it's an overstock, like, and that there are obviously a lot of limitations with the LCAs. I think for us, and the conversation we had with Lizzie was that the LCA tool is not really going to help us. Maybe when we move forward to looking at what kind of outboard engine and paints and things like that, but for the immediate term, because we are doing a lot of that hardcore grassroots research ourselves, it's really difficult. So there are definitely these limitations of the LCAs, and just for anyone listening who's maybe scratching their head at what we're talking about, these are the life cycle analyses. The Marine Shift has a tool that's available for boat builders, especially small scale boat builders like you guys. Very, very helpful. Belinda, I'm just thinking, before Otto, I don't want to cut you off because I know you have something to add. But Belinda, I'm just thinking how they just mentioned, about the Marine Shift LCA being kind of the data points being mostly fed so far by the composites industry. I wonder if this is not somewhere where women in boat building and our networks, combined networks, and Hanneke, other Wharram builders, especially some of the licensed Wharram builders that you have. I wonder if this is where we might not be able to also contribute some part through our network to try and build up that, the data points on wooden boats and wooden boat materials.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we obviously had our wooden boat stage at Southampton Boat Show this year in September. And that's the sort of thing, maybe next year, if we're going to do our wooden boat stage again, maybe we should have a spot where we talk about Marine Shift and try and raise the awareness in the wooden boat industry and try and get people to add their data. Yeah.
Otto, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on that, what Belinda was saying. Actually, you beat me to it. With Southampton and with the wooden boat stage and with Wooden Boat Trade Association as well, there's an opportunity to talk to more wooden boat builders about this, to see whether there's an appetite to kind of really step it up with regards to using an LCA tool and the benefit that these wooden boat builders can see. I think for them to give up time to put data in or gather data, you've got to weigh up that time piece versus what they're doing as far as their day-to-day job is concerned, or whatever word you want to use. So I think there's a real kind of balance between leading it and getting all this kind of good data, then what can they do with it? So what is the outcome of it all? Because it's great, we can collect it and kind of put it into this tool and we can use it. But I think there's got to be an output with regards to, okay, this is where we're at and this is what it can achieve further down the line versus potentially GRP or whatever it might be. So there's definitely legs in it. I'm just trying to work out how we can show the benefit of someone, or I think there's about 80 members now with regards to the Wooden Boat Trade Association, and you could tap into that to see whether we can get some more information out of it. But I've got to figure out in my head how we can give that information back and what's the benefit to all these amazing boat builders who are out there, to be able to kind of go, yeah, will that generate more sales? Will that generate more awareness? How will that kind of benefit? What's in it for me? I think that's where I will get questioned as well. And I could work it out eventually, but I'm just throwing that one up in the air a little bit for this kind of conversation.
I'm also thinking of EBI, is it the European Boating Industry? Is that what it stands for?
Is that Blue Horizons?
Blue Horizons, right?
No, is it Blue Horizon? I think it's I can't Google quickly because my computer will crash. I think it's the EBI. They are in Brussels, and from my understanding, they're kind of supposed to be, the lobbyists for the boating industry to be more sustainable. When I was on, I did listen to a podcast interview on the end of life boats issue a while back with the guy from EBI. I think it was, I don't know what his title is. He's one of the big head honchos. And I went on the website afterwards and I saw, they had a section on wooden, like wood choices for wooden boat in terms of sustainability. And I was really surprised because most of it is still African hardwoods. So it was a FSC pamphlet that it was essentially like a paper. And I have tried to email them. Maybe this little meeting will stimulate something. Corinna does actually have a contact there and she's trying to get me in touch with it. Belinda, that could be a good invite to the symposium next year. Because I totally get where you're coming from, Otto. Where with us it's a little bit different because we're a lab, we're a non-profit association, we're in it to do this. But this was one of the challenges that Lizzie mentioned, is that the boatyards and the boat builders that are for profit don't really want to share their data. Because you're all trying to get an edge, right? And then how do we move forward, like as an industry, at the individual DIY builder to the big boatyards in a more sustainable fashion if, only the gung-ho grassroots dudes like us are sharing knowledge. Wow.
But I think again, having done the wooden boat stage, or, from Belinda's point of view, and Colin Henwood, who's the chair of the WBTA, and also will read from the Boat Building Academy. Those three associations really kind of brought together a collective around the wooden boat industry. So I do believe that there's a willingness to share information because they're not competing against each other. It's trying to shift the mindset of consumers and people who are buying boats from plastic fantastic to kind of, wooden sustainable or whatever it looks like. There's an opportunity. The market's big enough to have all these people in a good place. There's not, I don't believe, and this is, me just kind of a couple of assumptions, I don't believe there's that much competition between the wooden boat builders. I think it's more of a kind of like, okay, how can we, because I think it would benefit everybody. If we were able to give this data and say, right, this is where we're at, guys, this is how it is. From a marine industry or a leisure or recreational perspective, great. We've always said, Obi and Otto have always said that what we collect, we want to give away. And when you're talking to investors, they talk about IP and kind of like, well, why are you doing that? I said, well, that's the whole reason we're doing it.
Cool, guys. I mean, I see it exactly as you do. It'll only benefit everyone. Also, we're all screaming out for want of better access to more innovative marine symbiotic materials, from epoxies to paints to anti-fouling, et cetera, and that's only going to come from demand. Right now, I forget the actual numbers, but in Corinna's presentation on the GRP crisis, she has the increase of demand that's expected by like 2030 of recreational boats, and it's huge. Post-COVID, it's only going up and up and up, and so that's a huge opportunity for the Wooden Boat Collective to come together and provide, you know, some opportunities. Hanneke, what did you want to say?
Well, I haven't had a word in yet at all. I'm slightly lost. This LCA, Life Cycle Analysis, you talk about. What is that precisely, and who's doing this? I mean, I can imagine with GRP products, you know, they will have certain life cycles. The problem is wood depends on where it's placed in a boat, how it's used, how it's sealed. You know, hardwoods generally are considered to be longer lasting than softwoods, whereas in my experience, I've actually had far more trouble with the hardwoods than with the softwoods, stuff like that. So who sets this data, and you know, and what's it based on? That's my question.
It's based on ISO, I think 14001, and so yeah, it's international standards for different types of products, and then you get like the data set from Eco-Invent, obviously. Yeah, Lisa, do you want to talk about it?
Lisa, yeah, you'd be a good one to talk about this.
Well, I'll try. I think Lizzie and everyone else in Marine Shift, they would be much better in explaining the whole system. But basically, there are like different international databases on environmental data, and they're using like different databases to feed their systems. And so they're internationally acknowledged as the best places to go for the data side of things. And also they have different modeling inside of the system. So for example, when you put into the calculator different aspects like laminates, for example, or something more complex than just one material, they're doing the modeling beforehand, and the modeling is done by people who actually used to work with these materials, so they have knowledge of what it is made of, and then they put a very specific number in the system connected to different environmental factors. So basically, they're like different side of things. You can start with raw materials, you can go after this to production, then to design stage and usage and end of life. So all of this is you can put in the system. And if you are a huge organization, you have a person who actually able to go through all of this, and they have all of this data, because of course you need the primary data, and then you can use the secondary data. So secondary data is the databases that you can find in the internet or all of this. And primary data is a company, you actually collecting it by yourself. As you said already, Angie, this could be us, you know, collect all of this primary data on wood and other materials, like innovative materials, and yeah, basically collect it all together. And then you have some sort of numbers which can go into the different sections, like you can count the carbon print, for example, if that's important for you as a goal for your organization. You can check the water usage, or you can check other aspects like for example, like human health, I think would be nice to actually count. I'm not sure if they have it at the moment because I'm not a specialist.
Yeah,
but they're actually thinking about it as well. So there are lots of different things that you can improve in your designs if you're going through different parts of the life cycle analysis. So it can be that you're going to change a small component on your boat, like change, for example, steel for aluminum, or vice versa. Or for example, for the luxury boats, you can just drop the usage of gold on your beautiful yacht, and actually it's going to be more sustainable and better for your organization, and probably cheaper it's very obvious here, but in different fields like mining, especially for the raw materials, it makes a huge difference where it's coming from as well. So at the moment, they're going to add the regional data as well. So they're going to have different regions around the world. So it's going to be easier to track where it's coming from, because raw materials, especially, we know that there are some sustainable practices and forests as well, right? So it depends where the wood is coming from and how it's managed. So it's basically a huge calculator that you can go through different stages of the life cycle assessment, I think it's called, or analysis. So I just like you can't really come up with it, but so it's basically you need to come up with a goal, first of all, what you want to improve in your designs, and then you have the final score, which can show you what you can do with all of that. I'm just, basically, I just started to use the tool and the Marine Shift Labs, the Marine Futures, and they have actually like different workshops on that, and they will be much better in explaining all of that, and they can help as well. And as far as I know, it's free for me at the moment. And basically, I think it's mostly free for one project, and they're super happy to support people and explain it all better.
Thanks, Lisa. They have an accelerator program, Hanneke, and when I was chatting with Lizzie, I suggested that, I introduced her to Blue Tree Boat Builders. I think she already knew about you guys, and then I shared that with Obi and Otto, so they're looking to be a part of that. Now, from a Wharram DIY builder perspective, as you said, like that's challenging. I mean, you're probably our best LCA at the moment, Hanneke, for all Wharrams, but as someone who wants Wharrams to be more popular around the world because they're minimalist, low impact boats that are also by nature and by design boats that attract co-sharing or co-ownership, as we talked about, you guys talked about with the hotels, which I think is fantastic, because in Professor Summerscale's paper on sustainability considerations for end-of-life composite boats, co-ownership is up there. After number one, most sustainable option is to discourage marine leisure, which none of us want to really do, with a question mark. So they took that tongue in cheek, but that's a no-brainer, really. The elephant in the room is that not making a boat would be the most sustainable option. But because we all want to go out and enjoy the ocean, the second most sustainable option is co-sharing. And I feel that with Wharrams, even the small ones, they really attract co-sharing of boats. So Hanneke, maybe that's a good point for you to jump in, and just as we're talking about materials and life cycle, and you mentioned about the softwood and hardwood discrepancies, I would love to hear a bit more about that and your experience with the different materials over the years.
Well, my main experience really lies always the life cycle of Spirit of Gaia, which was built 33 years ago, launched 33 years ago, and all the work I've done to keep her alive over all these years, and where the hard work lies. And actually, people can read all about it. I did a whole blog about the whole restoration of the boat, and in which you can see, what worked and where I had the most problems with rot and what all had to be replaced. And that's why I mentioned the hardwood and the softwoods. We made all our hedge combings out of hardwoods, and we went for Northern European hardwoods because we felt that was more sustainable rather than African ones. And so we went for chestnut, elm, and ash. We did not use oak, actually. Maybe we should have done. I don't know whether it would have been better. And then, of course, they were glassed on the outside, these hatches, and painted. And, of course, hatches get bashed in usage, so edges, the paint will crack and moisture can get in, and that's where we had a lot of rot come in. Whereas our cheap Douglas fir plywood, which we built the whole boat with, we've had very little problems with rot. Just a few, locations which were fairly understandable why it happened. There were deck windows, and around the edges moisture got in and into the deck, and that's where our little plywood rods have gone in the holes, that is, which are completely glassed. Other rot in plywood was, of course, we have these engine boxes on the deck with lids on it, and they kept constantly used and bashed and shut and closed, and you know, then paintwork got damaged, wasn't sealed up properly, and there was a lot of rot got in there, which then got replaced. Let's not get sidetracked too much here. But again, Douglas fir timber, actually, I found if it does get rot in it, it doesn't tend to travel much. You know, it will stay in a particular location which developed the rot, but I haven't found it sort of going all the way along the length of the piece of wood. It tends to stop, and you can cut it out and replace it. Whereas when I was replacing hardwood in the hatch combings, I would cut away all the stuff that I could feel was rotten, and then I left some of the stuff that was really rock hard, and I thought, that's okay. Then I found, after having completely reassembled the hatch with that piece of wood in it that was still hard, you know, a year later, suddenly the paint starts doing funny little things, and that shows there's fungus in the wood trying to come out. And it's quite disappointing when you have left a piece. But taking out hardwood that is apparent, on appearance not rotten, is very hard because it's hard. Whereas rotten wood is like cake, and you can scoop it out and chisel it out easy. So that's where. So that's my experience with just dealing with woods over many years. And right, one more.
Hanneke, can I ask, what would you have done differently?
I think the hatch design, we have actually changed somewhat, which I think is better. I've also designed ways that when we leave the boat, we can leave air cracks between the hatch and the combing so that it can dry out better, because there was a sort of joint which water would sit in, rainwater soak into the wood. That's pretty disastrous. Things like that. So yeah, the drier you can keep the wood, the better. Actually, with the inner combings, we didn't paint at all, and they're fine. I haven't had any problems with that. And of course, they were not exposed to the outside rain. It was the outer ones, you know, that caused all the problems. Yeah, but I've found even cheaper plywoods, glass, epoxy coated in glass and maintained, will stay very durable. Actually, there's an example many years ago. In fact, the very first ply epoxy boat I built was back in 1980. It was a little Hitia 14, which was made out of, I think, 4mm plywood. And we bought some Indonesian plywood, which, yeah, relatively cheap. And we built it using epoxy. We only coated the outside. We didn't actually glass it. We used glass tape and coating. And there was one sheet of plywood left over, which we had standing in our workshop. And within a relatively short period, it started to delaminate by just being in a fairly damp. But this little boat, with its epoxy on, lasted for many years, even though this plywood could have delaminated very soon. So it shows how important it is to have a good sealing epoxy coating. And if there's glass on it, it's even better. And I know glass has got its problems, as Angie knows. And unless we can find a different fabric that will do the same. I mean, nylon and resorcinol glue, which used to be used in the past, and I think it was actually on the outside of Gianna's boat, is quite a good solution, I think, actually, as long as it's done properly and should not peel off. And the nylon cloth, the advantage of that is, which I was told many years ago, somebody who had a boat like that, if you do have an impact of something hitting it, the nylon doesn't actually tear, it stretches. The wood on the inside will crack, but the nylon membrane will stay whole on the outside and basically, you know, probably keep the boat more or less watertight.
That's actually
I don't want to go on
yeah.
and on, but I hope I said something that's useful to people.
You did, and it's actually a good segue into thinking about the testing that we did with Pascal on the French maritime pine plywood with the Change Climate 100% bioepoxy. So that's the epoxy that's derived from algae, and the main material in it, or the main chemical, whatever you call it, is glycerin. And when we did the stress testing, what we found is that presumably the strength of the epoxy coating didn't crack the glass. It just delaminated the glass underneath, the kind of glass that we use as well. And therefore, theoretically, you would just cut a patch and repair it, but you wouldn't have like this gauging open crack. So you're keeping the hull watertight at the same time as minimizing the environmental damage. Obviously, the glass conversation is just super frustrating, honestly. For the moment, my take on it for our particular boat in the way that our boat is built, and thinking about the other DIY builders that can't do vacuum bagging and all these more kind of advanced technical methods, is by having a really, really good epoxy, we're essentially able to prolong and protect the glass. I mean, that's my thinking of it right now, and also designing and building with the death plan in mind. So making sure that it's maintained over the years, as Hanneke has done with Gaia. We have tested hemp with the Change Climate. It's unfortunately terrible in terms of a replacement for glass. It just doesn't grab onto it. I've met another boat builder who's been using hemp, and same thing, he desperately wants it to work. It's just not. The flax as well, it just becomes like a cardboard and just like soaks 10x resin. But again, going back to why we have these gatherings together and why we're trying to, be all allies in the wooden boat building world, is to try and put pressure on, the companies with the money to innovate and try, because we want better materials. Belinda, yeah.
We have to collaborate more on convincing consumers to ask those questions, though, because I did speak to GRP boat manufacturers at Southampton Boat Show, quizzing them on their eco credentials and saying, people that come on board these huge cats and are looking seriously at buying them, are they asking any questions at all about the material, the actual fabric? And they're just not asking those questions. So until consumers are putting pressure and asking the questions of the manufacturers, we can talk as much as we like, but it's the pressure's got to come from consumers.
And then the question is, how do we do that? And look, these wooden boat shows, and for me, it's all about getting people immersed in the experience. And that's why what we're trying to do here is bring and allow volunteers to come in and get their hands on the boat, because that, for me personally, has been life-changing, working with the materials, working with wood. And then when I went to Port Townsend and went to the Wooden Boat Festival, I was just like, oh my God, why is this not everywhere? I mean, we do have this culture here in Brittany, but we still have 10,000 plus recreational GRP boats hitting the water every year right now, and about 300,000 at end of life, and only something like 2,000 being properly disposed of. So it's a huge issue. And I guess, Otto, you might back me up. Like, this is where I think storytelling and, immersing people both physically, and you guys did this by having the wooden boat stage and starting to share stories and letting people get hands-on and tangible with wooden boats. But, also what can we do through storytelling and content creation around how fantastic wooden boat building and wooden boat sailing is. I mean, Hanneke, you're just the best at this. Your talk at Port Townsend, they were standing and like almost had to climb to the rafters. The room was so full, and you just gave decades of a story of your life from 14 years old to today, building and sailing these boats. And I definitely know Wharram is having a resurgence of popularity right now. Yeah. And part of that, I think, is also because it's accessible. It's affordable. It's minimalist. It's one of the most sustainable options. So that might be a good segue into giving some, I don't know if you're allowed to share any of your new news.
I think I could do.
The Dornenay the Dornenay Maritime Festival is next summer, everyone. And we are hoping to have a Wharram Hui there. So a bit of a Wharram and Floating Stories Lab kind of booth get together, try and get all the Wharrams in the UK and France to sail there, and then do a barbecue at our boatyard and a visit of where we're up to. So maybe you guys need to sail over.
I'm planning to sail Spirit of Gaia up there, because that's another plan that's being developed. When I was in Port Townsend, I met up with some good friends who were mainly friends actually of my son and daughter-in-law, and the man sailed with my son on this big Roskilde Viking ship from Ireland to Roskilde. That was back in 2008. So they became good friends there. And he's in fact a qualified skipper. He's got captain's license to sail these 4 ships and things like that. So he's a very experienced sailor, very good with people and groups of people on boats. His wife is a very capable woman of the class that of the women here. She's a trained marine technician, so she can install all sorts of stuff on boats, and that's the job she does and earns money with. But she also builds houses. She extended her own house single-handed by herself, and she can do plumbing and electrics and all sorts. And so the 2 of them, they've got 2 small boys, and they want to start traveling by boat, preferably around the world and everywhere, and give their boys that sort of education. And they've prepared their place back home, renting the house out. They bought, in fact, other house which they're renting out. That's going to be their income. So they're all planned for it to do this world traveling. And then I thought, well, what I should do, I'm alone now running Spirit of Gaia, and I can only spend a small amount of time on board, and the boat sits unused too much. And I thought, well, here's people that I think I can trust to sail my boat safely and correctly and look after it. And so the plan is that we will be boat sharing, and they will be doing a lot more of the sailing on the boat, and I will be able to join them in nice exotic places, hopefully, where I otherwise wouldn't sail to, because I can't, a boat needs to be lived on if it travels around the world. People should be on board. You don't want to leave it somewhere by itself. It's never going to be a good thing. And so the plan is, as a sort of first trial sail together, we would sail it from Portugal up to Brittany and join the Dornenay Festival and the Hui. And I was thinking maybe we should do after that a short trip up to Cornwall and the south coast and do some sailing here and then leave again, because I don't want this boat left in, well, certainly not in Cornwall in the winter, next winter. So it probably should go back south, at least to North Spain for the winter, or back to Portugal. So there's quite a lot of sailing would be involved, and that would also mean opportunities for people to come and see the boat, sail on it. And well, too much to think about. It gives me sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Very exciting, Hanneke. That's such an amazing next chapter for Gaia.
Yeah.
And Hanneke's getting a train to Suffolk on Friday.
Yes, I booked it. I managed to book it wrong, actually. I booked it for my return date, and I sort of made a blunt mistake. I got the wrong date, but you can get a refund, and then you buy a new ticket. So I've done that.
Belinda, that's probably a good place for you to jump in and share what Hanneke is coming to visit you for, and plans for the symposium in February.
Yes, so Hanneke is coming in. Everyone is welcome to join us on Saturday for the Women in Boat Building Christmas gathering in Woodbridge. So basically they're very informal socials, but it's just an amazing chance for people to actually get together in person and have these conversations. And every single time we have an in-person gathering, amazing things come out of it. And it's just nothing like it. So Hanneke's coming up. Sadly, Obi's got family duties, so Obi won't be with us. But yeah, so on Saturday morning we're going to actually have a go with the tools. The Sutton Hoo ships company building of the Anglo-Saxon boat, which we're very excited about. So in Woodbridge at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, if anyone would like to join us. And then we're having lunch, and then we're going to just sort of have a chat about what we should do as women in boat building next year, what our focus should be on. And then in the afternoon, we are going to the amazing Woodbridge Boatyard for a tour and see what they're up to there, and have some tea and cake. So it will be very informal. If anyone needs a bed, they can cuddle up with Hanneke.
Okay, there's another strange bit of coincidence happened about this, because as I heard about Belinda's Christmas gathering, and I was contemplating, well, can I travel that far? It's an awful long way to go and everything, but I'm really interested in the Sutton Hoo ship, and you know, I would really love to see it and see the museum and all the everything else there. And as I was thinking that, I got an email out of the blue from somebody I've known way back, who was part of the multi-hull scene in the UK. He actually sailed a trimaran around Britain slowly and wrote about it. But he was friends with my father. And, well, I last met him years ago at a Dinghy Cruising Association meeting near Bristol somewhere. That's apparently the last time I met him. He's also getting on in age. I think he's 80 plus. And but it turns out he is actually the person who instigated the rebuild program of the Sutton Hoo ship, and was quite involved with it. He's stepped back from it now, so he's not directly hands-on involved. But he's got a very big website about Woodbridge and the ship and everything around it. And the reason he wrote to me, he knew I had been involved with both Viking ships and Polynesian ships and side rudders and all that kind of stuff. And they have an enigma with the ship. How was it steered? And he was asking, did I have any suggestions of what sort of steering arrangement they might have had on the based on the evidence they have of the boat itself, which doesn't show a clear steering position. So I want to spend a bit of time with him and look at this particular thing, and see if I can come up with any good solutions.
Good ideas, nice. But Belinda, you were talking about the symposium with Angie.
Yes. So one of the amazing things that comes out of these conversations, another amazing thing, is that Angie and I are very excited to be putting on an East Coast symposium in the UK about the GRP Bad Boats project, because one of the things that I'm from the East Coast, and there are no community collectives talking about it here. So obviously I'm very conscious that there's all this amazing work going on in Cornwall with the Wreck Free group, and there's all this amazing focus around Chichester because of Karina's work, and now there's even amazing work going on in the Isle of Wight, but we have nothing on the East Coast. So I really want to kickstart what's going on the East Coast, get something going basically. So Angie and Karina are coming on the 28th of February to the Royal Heritage Yacht Club, and we're gonna have an afternoon of talks and chats and try and really I really want to invite boat owners and media and boat builders and anyone that's interested, and hopefully get some other sort of local universities involved, and really get some some interest and conversations going around the whole Bad Boats GRP conversations in the didn't explain that very well.
No, you did a great job. It's really exciting. Another result of getting together in person. I was just over in the UK, as I mentioned at the beginning, for a couple of events, and was staying with Karina, and Belinda booked the wrong day to come and see one of my events. So she actually booked the day that we had free. So I was like, let's go to a pub. I'm in England. I want to go to a pub. I miss it so much. So we went together with your husband Matt and myself and Karina, and you got our energy fresh off a webinar that we had just hosted on the Citizen Science Initiative we're collaborating on. And it was just great to be able to share finally kind of in person, meet you in person, but share more about what we're doing and what we hope to come out of it. I will also be with Corinna in Isle of Wight, January 15th for the Royal Yacht Squadron Sustainability Symposium, which is very exciting. I met Susanna, the head of sustainability there, when she was in Douarnenez several months ago. And it was really touching for me that, you know, a yacht club of this, you know, it's a big deal, the Royal Yacht Squadron, and that they're interested in the problem. And we actually now have citizen scientists in the Isle of Wight mapping bad boats, and it's actually terrifying. The entire map is populated with little dots of all of these documented boats that are sitting rotting, and they're more or less all fiberglass, all recreational, and some of them, I forget, is it the Medina River there? And they're coming right up into the middle of the island in this estuary. So huge problem, and I'm just very thrilled, Belinda, that you're going to put on a symposium, and we just keep getting the word out there. But does anyone have any closing questions, thoughts, final things they want to share before we wrap up for today? Suddenly everyone's tongue-tied.
Thank you for organising it again, Angie. It's been a while, but it's really good to kind of catch up and just listen and hear what everyone else is up to, especially with the Marine Futures and Marine Shift 360, the LCA piece, and just listen to what else has happened. So thank you very much for kind of bringing it together again.
No, thanks for all of you guys to be here. Liza, yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to add a very cheeky idea that we had with Misha during the Mets trade. So we've been looking at all of this electronics, like Garmin and all of this innovative AI that people are using. And we're actually thinking to disrupt this industry in a way of actually making the open source electronics at some point. So I thought, like, maybe it would be a good idea to bring it to Wharrams as well, because we have the boat and
actually
the open source on top of that. That would be a nice disruption to the whole, you know.
I think we should bring in my friend Paul in America on that one. He has been playing with a what is it, Raspberry Pi, little computer stuff, and he's made little things. He's got a 3D printer, and he's been making little electronic boxes for, well, just USB connections, chargers, and that for the boat for me. And I think he would love to make some more stuff, because
that's a really
that's great.
Hoping we fit electronics on Gaia, which we keep very simple, but yeah,
that would be amazing, because we found a wonderful open source project on navigation, and I'm thinking about the weather systems, and then to put sensors on board as well. And you can find it, like, you can combine all of these technologies together. It's not going to be very expensive, so that would be nice actually to collaborate with different people if you're into this kind of a little bit of piracy thing.
I can bring him into this and he can talk to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I've been terrified about this, to be honest. Like, whenever I get forward thinking and think of the boat splashing and starting the circumnavigation, and just like how to manage the electronics, and you know, not wanting to have Starlink and big internet systems on board.
Don't have them.
Yeah.
We didn't have much at all. We had a compass, we had a handheld GPS. We had a wind instrument on the top of the mast that worked for some of the time. It failed at the end. I think, yeah, actually we did have a log speedo, but nowadays with navionics, that does all the GPS and tells you the speeds and everything, so you don't really even need that. Now we have an echo sounder just on its own, a very simple basic one.
That was going to be.
I'm still struggling with a wind instrument aboard that I still haven't managed to kind of. It's a Bluetooth without movement instrument, which I still need to get to work on the boat. It needs to talk to my phone, and I'm failing there a bit.
Is the echo sounder? How is that? Is that for a depth sounder?
Yeah, depth sounder.
But it's not.
That's it.
It's not going through the hull, is it?
Yeah, it is actually. We fitted it. We've had more than one fitted, because We started off with one, we built a blister on the side of the hull and had it going through that. But because that failed, and then this blister wasn't really suitable for another one. And then I closed up the forward centerboard cases, and then I used the centerboard case to put a through hull fitting through there, and that's where it is now.
So I said to Remy, no through holes in the boat, and he said we're having a depth.
But you can glue the thing in more or less. You can glue. I mean, they come in sometimes with retractable things, but most of them are just glued into the boat, so it's not actually a hole through the boat as long as you glue it in properly and seal it properly. But I mean, you can have it on a stick elsewhere. I mean, for quite a while we just had a lead line, but that's not really handy when you're coming into shallow waters. It's you do need a depth sounder. So that I think is quite useful. But most of the rest you could go, you know, with GPS and avionics, which gives you your speed and your distance and everything, and just have a backup
and solar panels,
you know, and have good solar panels. Nowadays, there's so much less electrics needed to be created with modern electronics. They use so much less. I mean, I grew up on boats in the 70s where your echo sounder was still a thing with a thing going round inside, and you know, and our radios was a great big sailor radio we had. So it's so different now. Still got stuff like that sitting in my workshop.
The museum. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I know I said it the first time, but we really got to do this more often. People seem to enjoy our chin wags, and I think it's really good. For me, it motivates me. It makes me feel less isolated in what we're doing here. And any way that us at Floating Stories Lab can support each and every one of you, we're always going to be here for you. So I really look forward to hopefully seeing everyone in the next few months. I'm back and forth to the UK, so I think we'll...
Angie, we want to come and see you as well.
Yeah, don't come now. It's bloody cold. Bloody cold. We're actually thinking of hosting a boat build residency for a week in May. But yeah, we are doing bulkheads, backbones. Hanneke's waiting for something better to look at, and I think that will be by spring. We should have the skeleton of the structure upside down.
Yeah, then I might come over and see you.
She doesn't want to come and watch us planing stringers and doing boring stuff. She wants to see the sexy
No. You can see that from a distance. And
we're digging the hole right now.
Yeah.
To put the French drain. Nothing interesting at all.
So I suggest maybe spring, but keep guys pencil in summer for the Wharram Hui, the Douarnenez festival. It's an incredible
July
event.
23rd it starts, I think.
Okay, I don't have it written.
27th.
How do you spell Hui? Hui?
H-U-I.
H-U-I.
It's apparently a Polynesian word, or used in New Zealand and that for a big get-together party.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think it's my cousin's wedding.
That's when it starts. You could start with the wedding, come across.
I will be in Cornwall. If someone could come and pick me up. Literally at Land's End.
The ferry. You can get the ferry. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.